Football, the beautiful game, has a unique power to unite nations and create moments of pure, unadulterated joy. At the heart of it all is the FIFA World Cup. It's more than just a tournament. It's a global festival held every 4 years, where the best players on the planet come together to represent their countries. The dream is simple: to lift that iconic golden trophy and be crowned world champions. For fans, it's a month of passion, hope, and sometimes heartbreak. For players, it is the absolute pinnacle of a career, the one prize that every single one of them dreams of winning from the moment they first kick a ball in their back garden or on the street. The importance of the World Cup cannot be overstated. It transcends sport. When your country plays, the whole nation stops to watch. People who don't follow club football all year round are suddenly experts, draped in their national colors and singing with pride. This tournament has given us some of the most unforgettable moments in sporting history, from incredible goals to dramatic penalty shootouts. It's a stage where legends are born and legacies are cemented forever. Think of Pelé, Maradona, Zidane. The journey to create this global spectacle began a long time ago. Jules Rimet, the third president of FIFA, was the visionary who dreamed of a standalone world championship for football. From those humble beginnings, the World Cup has evolved into the biggest single sport event on the planet. The story begins in 1930 in Uruguay. The host nation was celebrating its centenary of independence, and they were a footballing powerhouse at the time. In the final, they faced their fierce rivals, Argentina, in a match filled with tension and passion. Uruguay went on to win 4-2 in front of a massive home crowd. 4 years later, in 1934, the tournament moved to Europe, hosted by Italy. The home nation, Italy, coached by the legendary Vittorio Pozzo, battled their way to the final where they beat Czechoslovakia 2-1 in extra time. In 1938, Italy arrived as defending champions and proved they were still the team to beat, defeating Hungary 4-2 in the final in Paris, becoming the first nation to successfully defend their crown. The tournament then took a 12-year break due to the Second World War. When it returned in 1950, it was hosted by Brazil, a nation utterly obsessed with the game. Everything was set up for Brazil to win on home soil. But in the decisive match at the Maracana Stadium, in front of an estimated 200,000 people, Uruguay pulled off one of the biggest upsets in football history. They beat Brazil 2-1 in a match now known as the Maracanazo. Uruguay's captain, José Nasazzi, was the star, a commanding defender, while Italy featured greats like Giuseppe Meazza, cementing their place as one of the greatest teams of the pre-war era. Pozzo remains the only coach ever to win 2 World Cups. This era established South America as the early force in international football, with Uruguay's stunning achievement in Brazil silencing the world's largest stadium. These early tournaments set the template for drama, upsets, and unforgettable moments that would define the World Cup for generations to come. The 1954 World Cup in Switzerland is remembered for being a goal fest, with an incredible average of over 5 goals per game. The final pitted the mighty Hungarians, the magical Magyars led by Ferenc Puskás, against West Germany. Hungary were the overwhelming favorites, having thrashed the Germans 8-3 in the group stage, but the Germans, showing the resilience they would become famous for, fought back to win 3-2 in a match dubbed the Miracle of Bern. Then came the age of Brazil. In 1958 in Sweden, the world was introduced to a 17-year-old sensation named Pelé. He took the tournament by storm in the knockout stages, scoring a hat trick in the semi-final and 2 more goals in the final against the host nation. Brazil won the final 5-2 with a dazzling display of attacking football. Brazil proved their 1958 victory was no fluke by defending their title in 1962 in Chile. Pelé was injured early in the tournament, a huge blow for the team. But in his absence, another genius stepped up, Garrincha. Known as the Little Bird, his mesmerizing dribbling and incredible skill tormented defenders throughout the tournament. He was the star of the show, leading Brazil to the final where they beat Czechoslovakia 3-1. And then, in 1966, football came home. England hosted the World Cup for the first time, and the nation was gripped by fever-pitch excitement. Sir Alf Ramsey's wingless wonders were a disciplined and organized side, built around the formidable partnership of Jack Charlton, Bobby Charlton, and the brilliant goalkeeper Gordon Banks. In a dramatic final at Wembley Stadium against West Germany, Geoff Hurst scored a hat trick, the only one ever in a Men's World Cup final, to secure a 4-2 victory after extra time. That famous commentary line, "They think it's all over. It is now," still gives you goosebumps. It remains England's one and only World Cup win. This era confirmed Brazil as the undisputed kings of world football, while England achieved their greatest footballing moment on home soil. The 1970 World Cup in Mexico is, for many people honestly, the greatest tournament of all time. It was the first to be broadcast in color. The Brazilian team of 1970 is widely regarded as the best team in history. Led by Pelé in his final World Cup, they were an attacking force of nature, with players like Jairzinho, Tostão, Rivellino, and Carlos Alberto. They won every single game they played, culminating in a magnificent 4-1 thrashing of Italy in the final. That final goal, a sweeping team move finished by Carlos Alberto, is perhaps the most iconic goal ever scored. 4 years later, in 1974, the tournament was hosted by West Germany, and a new trophy, the one we know today, was introduced. The hosts were led by the elegant and intelligent defender, Franz Beckenbauer, known as Der Kaiser. They faced a formidable Netherlands side in the final, a team that had captivated the world with their total football philosophy, led by the brilliant Johan Cruyff. The Dutch took the lead with a penalty in the first minute before a German player had even touched the ball. However, the Germans fought back, as they so often do, with Gerd Müller scoring the winning goal in a 2-1 victory. The World Cup traveled back to South America in 1978, with Argentina hosting under a controversial military junta. The home nation was under immense pressure to win. Their star player was the long-haired striker, Mario Kempes. He was the tournament's top scorer and the driving force behind their campaign. The final was against the Netherlands, who were once again runners-up. In a tense and passionate match in Buenos Aires, filled with ticker tape and noise, Argentina won 3-1 after extra time, with Kempes scoring twice. It was Argentina's first World Cup title, a moment of incredible national celebration. This era was defined by some of the game's greatest individual talents. Pelé cemented his legacy as the only player to win 3 World Cups. Franz Beckenbauer redefined the role of a defender, leading his team to glory through intelligence and class. And Mario Kempes became a national hero, carrying the hopes of a nation on his shoulders and delivering its first ever world title. These tournaments were not just about winning, they were about the style and the legendary figures who made the beautiful game even more beautiful. The 1982 World Cup in Spain saw the tournament expand to 24 teams, and it produced a surprise winner in Italy. The Italians started the tournament very slowly, drawing all 3 of their group games, and only scraping through to the next round. But they suddenly clicked into gear. Their hero was striker Paolo Rossi, who came alive in the knockout rounds, scoring a hat trick against Brazil and finishing as the tournament's top scorer. In the final, they comfortably beat West Germany 3-1. It was Italy's 3rd World Cup title. Mexico 1986 is a tournament that belongs to one man, Diego Maradona. He was simply on another level, a genius at the peak of his powers, and he single-handedly dragged Argentina to glory. His performance against England in the quarter-final is the stuff of legend. He scored the infamous Hand of God goal, but then followed it up with what many consider the greatest goal of all time, dribbling past half the England team to score. In the final, Argentina beat West Germany 3-2 to claim their 2nd World Cup. The 1990 World Cup, held in Italy, was a much more defensive and cautious tournament. There were a lot of low-scoring games and penalty shootouts. The final was a repeat of the 1986 final, with West Germany facing Argentina. This time, however, the Germans came out on top. It was a tense, ill-tempered match, and Argentina had 2 players sent off. The game was decided by a single goal, an 85th-minute penalty converted by Andreas Brehme. It was a victory for German efficiency and organization. For their manager, Franz Beckenbauer, it was a unique achievement. He became only the 2nd person to win the World Cup as both a player and a manager. This decade gave us 2 of the most iconic individual World Cup campaigns in history. Maradona's dominance in 1986 was a display of pure, unadulterated genius that we may never see again. The period ended with a German side that represented the power of the collective, a well-oiled machine that ground down its opponents. It showed that there are different ways to win a World Cup. The 1994 World Cup in the USA was designed to win over the American public, and it did so with huge crowds and plenty of entertainment. The final was between two giants of the game, Brazil and Italy. After a tense and goalless 120 minutes, the World Cup was decided by a penalty shootout for the first time in history. The defining moment came when Italy's star player, Roberto Baggio, blazed his penalty over the bar. It was a heartbreaking end for him, but it handed Brazil their fourth World Cup title, led by Romario and Dunga. In 1998, the tournament expanded to 32 teams, and it was hosted by France. The home nation had a fantastic multicultural team representing a new France, led by Zinedine Zidane. In the final, they faced Brazil, who had the world's best player, Ronaldo. But there was controversy before the match as Ronaldo suffered a mysterious fit and was briefly removed from the team sheet, only to be reinstated. He was a shadow in the game, and France dominated, winning 3-0 with Zidane scoring 2 headers. It was France's first ever World Cup, celebrated with a massive party on the Champs-Élysées. The first World Cup of the new millennium, in 2002, was co-hosted by South Korea and Japan. It was a tournament of shocks, with big teams like France and Argentina knocked out early. Brazil, however, navigated their way to the final, led by the 3 Rs: Ronaldo, Rivaldo, and Ronaldinho. For Ronaldo, it was a story of redemption after his nightmare in 1998. He was back to his best, scoring an incredible 8 goals in the tournament, including both goals in the 2-0 final victory over Germany. It was a record 5th World Cup for Brazil, cementing their status as the most successful nation in the competition. In 2006, the tournament returned to Germany. This World Cup is perhaps best remembered for its dramatic final between Italy and France. Zinedine Zidane, playing in his last ever match, put France ahead with a cheeky chipped penalty. Italy equalized through Marco Materazzi. The game went to extra time where the infamous moment occurred. Zidane headbutted Materazzi and was sent off, a shocking end to a brilliant career. The match went to a penalty shootout, and this time, Italy held their nerve. Fabio Grosso scored the winning penalty to give Italy their 4th World Cup title, a victory built on their incredible defensive strength. The 2010 World Cup in South Africa was a historic occasion, the first time the tournament had been held on African soil. The sound of the vuvuzela was, honestly, the soundtrack to a tournament dominated by one team, Spain. Their tiki-taka style of football, based on short passing and keeping possession, mesmerized opponents, led by Xavi and Andres Iniesta. They reached the final against the Netherlands, and it was a tough physical battle. The game was goalless and heading for penalties, until Iniesta scored the goal that won Spain their first ever World Cup. It was a triumph for a beautiful footballing philosophy. Brazil hosted the World Cup again in 2014, but it ended in national disaster for them. In the semifinals, they were humiliated 7-1 by Germany in one of the most shocking results in football history. Germany, a team with a perfect blend of youth and experience, went on to face Argentina, led by Lionel Messi, in the final. The match was decided late in extra time, when substitute Mario Götze scored a brilliant goal to give Germany a 1-0 victory. It was their 4th World Cup title, and their first as a reunified nation. The 2018 tournament in Russia provided plenty of drama and saw France crowned as winners. This was a young, dynamic, and incredibly talented French side, featuring the explosive speed of Kylian Mbappé and the midfield craft of Paul Pogba and N'Golo Kanté. In the final, they faced a resilient Croatia side that had battled through 3 consecutive extra-time matches. France's quality proved too much in the end, as they ran out 4-2 winners in a thrilling final. And that brings us to the most recent chapter, the 2022 World Cup in Qatar. For many, it was the greatest final of all time. It was the moment the world had been waiting for. Could Lionel Messi finally win the one trophy that had eluded him and complete his legacy? Argentina faced France in a spectacular showdown. Argentina went 2-0 up, but Kylian Mbappé scored 2 late goals to take it to extra time. Messi scored again, only for Mbappé to complete his hat-trick and force a penalty shootout. Argentina held their nerve, and Messi finally got his hands on that famous trophy. It was a fairy tale ending, a crowning moment for one of the greatest players to ever grace the game.